Hello and welcome to Global Pathways. I'm your host, Mariam Abu Haidari. I decided to do something a bit different this time and post a video analysis instead of typing my analysis. So sit back and enjoy what I have to say. Today marks the Friday of Rage. I'm here in Cairo, in Zamalek, which is very close to the current venue of Rage, where the violence has been taking place. Fortunately, my building is secluded and is surrounded by other buildings, so I don't really see much, neither do I feel any of the tension except for what we find on the internet and on television. So a lot of people will argue that what's happening is outrageous and nobody expected it. I disagree. I think that it was quite expected that something like this would happen after Sisi and his security forces stormed Rabaa and Nahda. Because you kill innocent people who are protesting, and then you expect that everything will be rosy the next day. Absolutely not. You're living in a dream. With churches being burnt, there's no indication that it was done by pro-Morsi supporters. And how can you argue and say that it was in reality done because of what happened? It's not the Christians who killed pro-Morsi supporters. So all of this doesn't really make sense, that they would at first go and attack churches and property belonging to Egyptian Copts. Now, and the question to be asked here is, why is Sisi and why aren't the armed forces protecting churches when the first few churches were burnt down? Or why aren't Muslims, for that matter, protecting churches? Because clearly the Ikhwan will not come and kill another Muslim, but they'll kill Christians. Or why aren't the Christians themselves protecting or doing something to protect the barriers of the surroundings of the churches? I'm not making a point to side with any particular camp here, but these are questions to be asked about why everything is being blamed on the pro-Morsi camp when, for example, if someone I believed in extremely, like a president that I believed in for India, and he was taken down in the same way through a coup, which the West is avoiding that term, but it is a coup. Because it is quite clear that Sisi is seeking power, or will seek power in the next election. I don't even know if there will be an election at this point. But if I believed in someone to that extent, as most pro-Morsi supporters believed in him, or still believe in him, I would probably protest too for months, as long as I felt like he was wrongly indicted and of course, I wouldn't go as far as killing people, but example, if my uncle, a family member of mine was killed, it's hard to just stay neutral. It's hard to say, okay, I'm just going to stand back and watch what comes next. As humans, we can all claim that we're all peaceful, and yes, we're peaceful, but we're not someone who can just watch where a family member has been killed. Like with a simple murder case. You want the murderer tried in jail, you want the murderer to face justice. But how do pro-Morsi supporters, or how would I do that if my family member was killed at the hands of the current law, the current regime, just because he was against what had happened? A lot of people have lost loved ones, and emotions are high. And there's just no way that they would sit silent. And who is to blame? Nobody is without blood on their hands here. Sisi clearly could have taken other approaches, but he chose not to. I mean, he did give them enough time, like a month, but he didn't observe, he didn't involve the youth, for example, on both sides, which could have worked. Or given the Muslim Brotherhood or pro-Morsi supporters kind of a temporary reinstatement of his presidency, or or an election very quickly. So these are questions to be asked and to be pondered upon. And then the other thing is, like, with all these people dead, with all the numbers throwing around, even police officers are dying, civilians are dying, and including Morsi supporters are dying. So you can't just go about blaming that it's the pro-Morsi supporters who are killing people. And what other solutions? And now it feels like Egypt will break into a civil war. It already seems quite obvious. I have a few friends who had once said to me, this was during July 3rd and before July 3rd, that they want all Morsi supporters to die and be crushed. Now that is an extreme view on the side of the left as well. So what happens next is a big question mark, but this will not stop here. And we know that. We know that it's going to get worse because Sisi and his security forces crossed all limits with what they did with Rabaa and Nahda and clearing of the sit-ins there. I was at Tahrir yesterday, and I saw in the middle of Tahrir they've set up like kind of a makeshift museum called Madaf al-Sawra, and it seems pretty much like a slum as well, And I remember when Tahrir was occupied by, when people were against Mubarak, or when the security forces or when the interim government wanted to get Cairo back to normality, they didn't go in and storm and kill people, right? So why this with Rabaa and Nahda? And I mean, I do feel that Morsi as a president did do a few things, did make a few wrong moves, but there was no way to take him down through a coup and then not to expect all of this to ensue. And if civil war does break into Egypt, which I feel like Sisi does want this, so that he can kind of come and take power and snatch it away from the interim government, which was appointed by him, he's going to do it. And he's going to have a very good justification for that as well. What disheartens me and what breaks my heart is to see Egyptians pinned up against Egyptians. So who's to say that, there won't be more violence and more killing? What we can do for now is just sit back and watch and hope that some kind of effort is made towards reconciling the youth on both sides, because the older generation, just keep them out of the equation. They're not going to change. They're set in their ways. But the youth is what I'm worried about, because this country will be run in the future by them. And to ignore them would be disastrous for Egypt. Let's hope for the best and keep coming back to the blog for more. This is Mariam Abu Haidari. Thank you.